Decking, railing, lighting, furniture, fencing, framing. At Trex, we make the most in outdoor living because you deserve to get more from your life outdoors. So why not start bringing your ideas to life now with the brand that's engineering what's next? To learn more about all of the outdoor solutions Trex has to offer, or to find a local retailer or a certified Trex Pro deck builder near you, visit Trex.com. That's Trex.com.
This is the best of Golic and Wingo podcast.
He did not care. Michigan ran into a supernova tonight for the second time in 3 years. Nova is number one. Villanova, your 2018 national champion.
Good Tuesday morning, everybody. Welcome in to another edition of Golic and Wingo. Glad you're with us on ESPN Radio and ESPN News. We are presented by Progressive Insurance. All phone guests join us on the Shell Pennzoil Performance Line. And congratulations, we know who the big winner is. Mike Golic Jr., Trey Wingo. And I may be surprising you here, as the college basketball season is now complete. It is done. It is fin. And it's pretty clear that the big winner, Catholic universities. That goes without saying, because Notre Dame has the unbelievable finish against Mississippi State in the women's championship, and the Jesuits reigned supreme in the men's game as Villanova just absolutely took down Michigan. You guys got to be feeling pretty good about this.
And I think as well, another reason why I'll feel good about myself, most of my career is in Philadelphia, how Philadelphia has done pretty well.
We will get into that.
I know. We got a lot to go with that one. But, you know, the game, I think there was more hope last night than anything else. I think we all felt this one coming, and I know you don't really want to base it off of one game, but we saw Michigan have to scrap back against Loyola Chicago, and we saw Villanova just wax Kansas to where Bill Self was like, well, we weren't even in the game. I mean, it wasn't even a game. And you don't want to go on that one game, but Villanova had won all the games up to that and including that by double digits. So I think there was hope. Man, I hope Michigan can make this a game. You know, and certainly any Michigan fan or alum was out there saying, yeah, we can win this thing. Look what we've done. We have the longest streak going on. But it came down to it. I think for most people, exactly what we thought we were going to see. Villanova is a great team. They have a lot of great different pieces. The AP Player of the Year didn't even play that well last night, and it was some guy coming off the bench just absolutely setting the world on fire like his red hair's on fire.
Yeah, for this one, it's because Villanova didn't do anything they hadn't already done. Right. They were consistent. They had the most three-pointers in the Final Four ever. They had the most three-point makes in the tournament ever. And they had the most three-pointers in a season in Division I men's history. So these are all things that they had been doing. And so to go out there and see them struggle early and still be within 3 points of this game, and to be winning on the boards the way they were, to be winning on 50-50 balls the way they were, this wasn't shocking. We saw this coming the entire way.
It makes you wonder if the committee could go and reseed the entire tournament again, would they have put Villanova as the number one overall seed for all those reasons? By the way, predictably, but very well done, the Daily News in Philadelphia, the front page, I believe, says Dante's Inferno.
Well, it has to.
The number one joke from Twitter last night.
And the back page says Invincible with the big V. So nicely done, a couple of decent references. We'll get into all of that. We got some great guests for you today. Avery Johnson, Alabama head coach, who I could read, the back of a barf bag on an airplane and I'd be entertained. Mm-hmm. He lost to Villanova in the second round of the tournament. He'll join us. Jay Bilas will come in and talk to us and give us some historical perspective now, just where Villanova as a program ranks after yet another championship win for Jay Wright and company. And Bruce Pearl, who, by the way, I could also listen to talk to about almost anything because he's pretty funny. Auburn's head coach will also join us to get his take on what exactly went down in the championship game and just how good Villanova is. All of that to get to, but let's start the show as we always do.
It's time for Off the Top.
Whether you like it or not, it's just beginning.
With Golic and Wingo.
Well, we start with another championship for Philadelphia, thus making Cliff our cookmaster on the board very, very happy. 79-62, Villanova takes down Michigan to win its second national championship in the last 3 years. The fourth team to accomplish that feat since the NCAA tournament expanded in 1985. The other three are Florida, Kentucky, and Duke. Wildcats become the third national champion to win every game in March by double digits and one in April.
Yeah, that to me is an amazing one because you think while they have the AP Player of the Year in Brunson, you don't think of him in the same breath when you think of the other two teams that won all their games by double digits. UCLA in 1967 led by some guy named Lou Alcindor.
Never heard of him.
And in 1956, San Francisco led by some guy named Bill Russell.
Who?
So, I mean, pretty monster names, even though, again, you do have the AP player of the year, but this is so much more of a team thing. And you mentioned, Mike, all their three-point shooting, but they just play well as a team. And you have three players who played pretty good minutes in their when they were youngsters 2 years ago that played in this game, that have a couple of championships now. So, and if some of these guys come back, it will be interesting to see what this team looks like next year. I think out in the desert, they already put them second behind Duke. As far as, chance for a championship next year.
It is pretty wild to hear Jalen Brunson's name mentioned along those side of guys. He seems closer to the guy that's going to be in a rec league later in life screaming all ball at some accountant than he does to the pantheon of greats he was mentioned alongside there. This is interesting. Villanova, for all the reasons you mentioned, clearly looked like the best team in college basketball by the end. I don't think any of us are going to doubt that. But with the tournament format, I'm always interested because I don't know if the answer is Michigan. Who was the second best team that we saw? Because I really don't think
Michigan was the hot. I mean, they came in with a 14-game.
They also didn't play anyone above a 6 seed along the way in the tournament.
It was
6 seed. Houston was the best team seed-wise that they played in the tournament. And so I just wonder, as we look back on this, who we're going to assess that way. And that's sort of the unfortunate part of this tournament, is you don't always get a clear answer in that regard. But I think going forward, it also makes Villanova interesting because they're going to bring back a lot of talent off this team next year and should be outside of Vegas. I think they're going to be the team that starts number one and looks like to have the path to come back.
Lots more on Villanova throughout the day as we continue with
Off the Top.
Baseball. Pitchers are having a hard time with Bryce Harper. Call me if you've never heard this before. And inside the park, they're trying to keep him around and off the bases. His hot start is a big reason why the Nationals are one of two unbeaten teams remaining in Major League Baseball. The other, surprisingly, being the Pirates.
How about that? Both 4-0. Harper, second player in the Nationals and Expos history with 3 home runs in the team's first 4 games of the season. Vlad Guerrero did that in 2000. He went on to have a career-high 44 home runs that year. For Bryce, it was that 3rd home run of the season, all in the last 2 games. He didn't hit his 3rd home run until last year, until April 16th, the 12th game. And really, listen, the Nationals, I think, are on that kind of window of opportunity just about close with what they got in the pitching and Bryce Harper. People talking about the money that 2 years ago, talking about the money he was going to get. After this past offseason, you wonder if that's drying up a little bit to, when I say drying up, to maybe not get $400 million contract, but still get something pretty big. That seems to be the talk. How good can they make hay before a guy like Bryce Harper, who they all think is going to leave?
Yeah, this town really, between them and the Caps, tends to kind of sit here on the cusp of something happening every year. And for Bryce Harper, it's getting interesting. It's almost like he's coming out and reminding us, because all the talk for the last year, whether it was 2 years ago in the Cubs and that young team and the young core there, guys like Chris Bryant and company, or now last year, Aaron Judge and Giancarlo Stanton joining up and being the names that come out of our mouths, word association first with the great players in baseball, but Bryce Harper, who's been consistently there for so long, reminding everyone that he is still one of the dudes to be strongly considered.
And he's one of the dudes that had one of the great mispronunciations of meme as well. He called it a meme.
Yes, he did.
And then, of course, Jim Nantz called it a mimi.
Yes, he did.
So if that would be ever great if they could coagulate those two, would be a meme or a meme. That's what's left, right?
Here's
that's what's
left. Some of the older generation, which I guess we're part of, Trey.
Speak for yourself, old man.
They at times almost take pride in, I'm not part of this social media world. I'm not part of this Twitter world.
I'm not delving into your cesspool.
I'm not Snapface and all that. And you know what? They sound ridiculous. I have to admit, to go to the millennial side of it, you sound ridiculous when you sit there and act like that, in my opinion.
I also want to make the move right now because we've got another generation underneath us. Gen Z is here, and I want to start blaming them for the problems. Millennials, we're adults now. We got 401ks and junk. These Gen Zers are the ones you got to watch out for. The trends that they're putting onto the internet are disturbing, to say the least.
Is that the new term, the Gen Z?
Gen Z, I found that out the other day because I was wondering, like, we're getting kind of old, millennials. It's getting hard to keep blaming us for stuff that teenagers are doing now. But Gen Z, yeah, that's the new hot one in the street.
Well, here's the question. If this generation is Gen Z, have we run out of generations?
What's next?
Gen Z1?
Do we go
Gen
back
Z A1A?
Or do we go back to double A?
I mean, what do we do?
Yeah.
How do you go from Gen Z? Stanzik, research that.
Yeah,
get on it.
somebody.
Or find research producer. Find it out.
No.
Figure it out.
Brett is so offended right now. He's already got a note that you didn't invite him to share.
Brett, do you have a note? Do you have a note on Gen Z?
Golic went with the double A. It's like an Excel document.
Yeah.
Oh, God.
That was it? Really?
That
was it?
Really?
I'm smiling you asked me.
That's
that was
it?
I didn't ask to be
He's
on the
just
air.
always at the ready. We didn't say he was at the ready to do something good.
That is also true. Just knowing he's willing to speak, whether or not it's good, will be decided after it comes out. Thanks, Ben. Congratulations on your championship win, by the way.
Oh, did you guys win?
Devin
was
Brett.
the star. You can leave it to him. He'll explain.
Devin was a star? We'll get it.
We'll get into that.
I want to hear about this. Let's finish up. We'll finish up off the top, but we need to hear how Bubble Boy took care of Brett, who put the size in seismology.
Off the top.
Meanwhile, it took 15 innings, but the Diamondbacks beat the Dodgers 8-7 in a game that lasted 5 hours and 46 minutes.
Wow.
The longest game in Chase Field history in terms of actual time elapsed.
Yeah, Kenley Jensen struggling in this one to close it out. I mean, it's just absolutely. He gave up a 3-run home run to Chris Owens to blow the save and send the game into extras till we got to that 5-hour game. He has allowed a home run in both of his appearances this season. Only the second time in his career he's allowed home runs in back-to-back games. He allowed multiple home runs just twice in 65 games last year. The biggest reason for those that really want to dive deep is the velocity of his cutter, gang. It's down 3 miles an hour.
Get out of town.
Yes, it is.
Man, we're already deep in it.
We're
huh?
deep.
This early in baseball season, we already have to talk about a 15-inning game, too, by the way, as we laud. I think one of the feathers in the cap of the national championship last night, that was a tight 2-hour game. I was thrilled with that product. And Major League Baseball always talks about pace of play. There are some things you just can't eliminate.
We hate the late start. We like the 2 hours, though. In football, you get the late start, and it's still 4 hours. So last night, Brett, God help me, I'm going to give you a chance to talk.
Oh, no.
If we implemented the rule
I'm
you
sorry.
do?
Thank God. All right, yeah.
You be quiet, Brett.
That Rob Manfred.
Oh, it's from Brett? Oh, okay, I got to let Brett do it.
Rob Manfred came on this air and said they will never do what they're doing in the minor league, and we've seen it in other places. Start with a runner on second in extra innings. What would have happened if they had done that?
Okay, so if they would have done it, the game would have been over after 11 innings, and the other team would have won.
Oh, the Dodgers would have won. In 11
Both teams
innings.
would have scored in the 10th, and then the Dodgers would have scored in the 11th.
So we'd have saved ourselves about 2.5 hours.
Yeah.
Okay.
This is like when someone messes up the cards at the blackjack table and you try and count when the next one comes out. You can do that really well. I get lost immediately, and I just saw the same look in Devin's eyes. We're both sitting there trying to figure this out. Like, how did the other team just win?
Okay.
We went from counting cards and blackjack.
You lost me there, Sporto.
Yeah, exactly. That's the idea.
I will say this, though. I don't think it should be in the game, but when you see this in 15 innings in 5 hours, suddenly that rule doesn't look so...
It looks pretty good, doesn't it?
Suddenly Michael Wilbon's head exploding maybe isn't the worst thing ever if they ever thought about implementing that rule. All right, let's finish this up. Sporty McSporterson.
Off the top.
In their home opener, the Yankees today faced the Rays after Monday's game was snowed out. It's tonight at 7 o'clock on ESPN. After combining to go 5 for 9 with 4 runs scored in the season opener, Giancarlo and Aaron Stanton are 2 for 20 in their last 3 games. Well, Aaron Judge, what'd I say? Aaron's never heard of him. What's wrong with the Yankees?
Yeah, I wish I knew. But you mentioned it, 2 for 20 for those two, no home runs. They just scored 1 run, and they have 7 strikeouts between them. We know the issue Judge had last year, striking out for a while after what everybody said, the home run derby destroyed his swing, and he was striking out all the time. But listen, I mean, come on. Any time we start talking the first handful of games in baseball and we start throwing out numbers and setting trends is a little much for me in a 162-game schedule.
Well, it's all about managing expectations again. We talked about this with Ohtani, the way that his lackluster spring made his little bit of output early in the season in this first week give us a lot of hope. For Giancarlo Stanton, coming out and belting 2 homers in your first game as a Yankee set the expectations in a much different place. So these two are going to be battling this all year.
They will be averaging or actually battling this thing all year. Again, it's a marathon, not a sprint.
Yeah.
When you talk about the baseball
it
season.
is. Yeah.
I go back to the 1998 Yankees. They were about to go 0-3 or 0-4, and we had researchers looking up that year here at ESPN. Has an 0-3 team ever won the World Series? Well, yeah, they went on to win like 114 or 15 games and won the
worked out okay.
Worked out okay. That was the start of a run of a lot of World Series wins for the New York Yankees.
Off the top.
And that was Off the Top, brought to you by Samsung. And if we're continuing the top story, it is clearly what went on with Villanova. So what impressed you the most about Jay Wright's squad and what they were able to do? To me, watching that game, I remember thinking in the first half, and I put this out there. I said, Villanova can't buy a bucket, and they're only down 3 points.
At that point, they were 1-9, I think, from 3-point land and down 3. So as people are looking at it as a negative, I'm sitting there going, no. Wait a minute, they're in pretty good shape here when they start hitting.
Good. That tells you just how deep this team is, right? We all went into this thinking, okay, Jalen Brunson, player of the year, Bridges, because he can do a little bit of everything. Pascal, he's there. We've got Spellman, who was just a monster underneath. None of us were thinking, that Dante DiVincenzo guy, he is clearly going to be the reason they're going to win the national championship.
No, but he was a guy that authored some pretty big moments earlier in this tournament run. A guy who got that sneaky athletic moniker that we know so well, goes with the guy that can sneak up there and dunk while not quite looking the part. Probably a coach's son out there as well.
Coach on the floor, really.
Yeah, but
first to come into practice, last to leave.
But we had seen enough moments from him where he was at least a name that I recognized when he started going off in all of this. But last night, he was what saved the game. We talked about it being over in 2 hours and that being helpful for the product. But it was a blowout for the most majority of the game, especially in the second half. Yet I stuck around to continue to watch what that one guy was going to do.
Dude, he had no fear. There were a couple, you could tell he was feeling it. There were a couple of shots in the second half where Michigan got it to within 12. He'd go right down and just fire up a three from just over half court with two guys in his face, and he knew it was going in.
You look at him in the semifinal game against Kansas, where he scored 15 points. He was 3 of 5 from 3-point land. In this game, 6 of 10. So my quick math says 9 of 15 in the the semifinals and then the championship game combined. Pretty impressive. But he was playing defense. He had a nice block at the rim as well. Had the mid-range jumper shooting. He was kind of hitting everything in this game. Again, a guy coming off the bench who wanted to be a starter at the beginning of the season and kind of was a little bit miffed about that whole thing, but I'd say he settled in pretty well.
Yes, he did. In fact, the fact that he came off the bench was a sort of a bone of contention with him and Jay Wright. We'll get to that in a minute, but I'll give DiVincenzo points for honesty. He was asked after the game, hey, did you see this coming out of you? And here was his response.
Honestly, no. I did not think that I was going to have this kind of night because every night I come into the game, I just try to bring energy. And if we get off to a good start, I try to take that energy to a new level. I try to defend and I try to rebound to best my ability and just trying to get it going. And like I said, these guys did a great job of just finding me, and I found myself in the rhythm.
Yeah, I'd say he was in a rhythm a little bit. He averaged 13 points a game in the regular season coming off the bench. So wasn't a total scrap heap player, but nobody was expecting this from him.
No, they're not. And from all accounts, he seems to be a legitimate NBA caliber type player where, we would see, but come back next year to really if it comes back next year to Villanova, I don't know if anybody believes he's going to declare for the draft. If he comes back and what this team can do if other players come back as well. We'll see, but I think nobody really knew about him, again, being a six-man as well for a team that, Brunson and others that were kind of the guys, the names on this team. But he has made a name for himself going into next year. I've heard those say that he'll be a preseason All-American next year, which is, again, a six-man, a guy coming off the bench. You got to imagine he's going to be starting next year if he comes back, I would imagine. But all the way from that to wanting to start to being a six-man to doing what he did in the semifinals and the finals to being a preseason All-American, if he were to come back, that would be an interesting run.
Yeah, we had Myron Metcalf on over on First and Last this morning, one of our ESPN college basketball
Don't you mean Malcolm
writers.
Medford?
Yeah.
I always mess his name up. I don't know why. Myron, one love, baby.
Yeah, the butcher of Metcalf over here in the leading chair. But Myron came over and said that exact phrase, which was, you can expect all of these accolades to be lined up in front of him. So there's a chance we could watch the current player of the year pass the baton to the next player of the year right within his own locker room.
Well, it's an interesting thing. And again, he's going to be a much better player than this other player I'm going to bring up. But we talked about this in Off the Top, the fact that they have now won 3 championships since 1985. Their first one came back in 85. Against the mighty Georgetown Hoyas with Patrick Ewing and everybody else. They were an 8th seed. They came on to win. And as I'm watching this game unfold and I'm seeing DiVincenzo doing all these things, I'm thinking, my God, he's Harold Jensen 2.0. And a lot of people are like, Who the heck is Harold Jensen? Well, let me explain some things for you, okay? Harold Jensen was a 6'5" swingman from Trumbull High School in Trumbull, Connecticut. He played for Raleigh Massimino and Villanova. He was their sixth man. He came off the bench. He averaged 4.1 points per game during the regular season. But somehow against one of the best defenses we'd ever seen at that point in college basketball, Hoya Paranoia and everything that team could do, he came off the floor, shot 5 for 5 in the national championship game, and hit 4 clutch free throws down the stretch. Harold Jensen was a bigger reason as anybody that Villanova beat Georgetown for their first national championship. It wasn't Dwayne McClain or Gary McClain or Ed Pinckney, who all went on to play at some level in the NBA. Right. It was Harold Jensen off the bench. So as I'm watching DiVincenzo light this up off the bench, I'm like, my God, he's channeling his Harold Jensen one more time.
No, you're right. He's better than
much
that.
Better,
Definitely,
much better.
But I get your thought process there. Yeah, no doubt about it.
Is that a Generation B comment right there?
It's probably a Generation A.
That story sounds like it churned its own butter.
Well, listen, you know what? History's fun because you know what? Things that happened before you were born actually happened.
Yeah.
And sometimes they put a context in things that happened going forward.
No, I know. So did that wheel that you hit with a stick in the schoolyard back when you were a kid.
No, that was my grandparents. I was the one that was on the little trike going down the hill.
By the way, somebody, what did you call this next generation coming up, Mike?
Gen Z?
Somebody said it's called the Centennial Generation.
Oh, see, this is the problem. We have too many labels already.
I don't know.
Gen Z sounds like a weather person.
Yeah, it does.
Let's go to Gen Z in the Stormcast Center, right?
Yeah, it does.
That sounds more like...
Is it
it sounds like Ginger Z, but it's Gen Z.
Yeah.
Gen Z.
Gen Z is Ginger's cousin.
Exactly right. Ginger Z's cousin is Gen Z. She's working in Spokane somewhere, looking forward to her big break when she'll take over national meteorology for some morning talk show. And just like that, we've gone completely
Yes,
off the
we
rails.
have.
Coming up, we love nicknames in sports, and Dante DiVincenzo has a couple of them, including one that we're not sure where the origin came from, but it became a bone of contention this year for Villanova. And Jay Wright will talk about that.
Golic and Wingo.
And Wingo.
Trey Wingo and Mike Golic Sr. Golic and Wingo with you on ESPN Radio and ESPN News this morning, a Tuesday morning after the national championship game. We, as always, are presented by Progressive Insurance. All phone guests will join us on the Shell Pennzoil Performance Line. So you heard there in the read that one of the nicknames for Dante DiVincenzo is the Big Ragu.
Yes.
Because of his Italian heritage, and I'm guessing the reddish hair on the top of his head. Gus Johnson, I think, was the one that gave him that nickname. He was certainly the big whatever you want to imply after the Monday night performance. 31 points, jacking up threes, bringing energy, as he said, hitting finally some free throws down the stretch. But the drives to the lane, I think, more than the threes, Mike, were the thing that impressed me more. That one time he started left, went right, Mo Wagner switched on him, went behind the back for the dribble to go to the rim. I mean, he unleashed the entire collection.
Well, that's exactly right. He did. The entire catalog was out there, from the 3 points to the driving to the blocks on defense, and the block at the rim was an excellent play as well. You know, again, you never know. You count on your stars in the big game. We all know that in playing. When you get to the bigger game, you look to your bigger guys to be the stars. And we've mentioned some of the stats of some of the teams that had the stars shine through. You just never know. You never know who may step forward, but it's also that moment where you think the stars would be the guy, but that's when that person steps up, somebody you didn't expect to step up. What were you saying? What was that note you had put up there, Stanzik, about Grayson Allen? His freshman year, scoring 16
off the bench.
I mean, all of a sudden he becomes a name now, a name more than for tripping people, but still, his level rose as a player, and he's a pretty darn good player, obviously. So that's the thing I like as well. The stars, the expectation is there, but who's that other person that has that to steal the line, one shining moment?
Well done. And I think it speaks to also what Jay Wright and company have built there. The fact that you have not only a culture where a guy can thrive that much in that role, but also to where his teammates will start to defer to him when he's the hot hand. You had the player of the year on your team, right, who had a very off night, and instead of trying to force too much, and instead of trying to make a square peg into a round hole, they said, we've got this guy playing out of his mind, a guy who we know the caliber of player he is on this team. We're going to let him shine in this moment.
Well, listen, we mentioned the Big Ragu, and that goes to the point we talked about just how deep this team is. I mean, there were a lot of guys in Villanova that were in foul trouble last night, and you're thinking, oh, they may be in trouble. No, the answer was not even close, because they had so many guys they could go to, including Dante DiVincenzo, who, besides the nickname the Big Ragu, has been also handled the moniker of the Michael Jordan of Delaware. But exactly who gave him that nickname is apparently very much up for debate, according to Jay Wright, the head coach of Villanova.
He said I said it to him facetiously in his freshman year when he was acting like a superstar, and I said to him, "Well, you act like you're the Michael Jordan of Delaware." I don't remember saying that, but he said it. And then other people started saying it, so then I thought that the players started repeating it, so I thought they called him that. So I started saying it. So it became his name.
Hey, however it works, man. Yeah. However you get there, to have your name and Michael Jordan in the same breath is cool.
It worked last night, that's for sure.
Yeah, it definitely did. A guy who was scored or assisted on 49% of Villanova's points. I mean, what a feeling that has to be in the biggest game after coming off a nice game in the semis, obviously team-wise, but he did as well, going 3 for 5 from three-point land. Just to have that hot hand, in a sport where, again, our sport, it's dictated by position. You and me as offensive defensive linemen, you never feel that zone. I'm in that zone. Oh my God, for you, oh my God, my step is fantastic. I'm in that zone today, Hat
placement's really feeling strong.
Exactly.
My
oh my
punch
God.
move is solid today.
For me, oh my God,
totally
that spin move or splitting that double team, it just doesn't seem right. But for a basketball, man, a shooter, just like you don't feel like you can miss, you just hit that shot. It's got to be an incredible feeling that it doesn't matter where you are on the court that you can knock down a shot.
It's got to be a great feeling too to be able to shove this back in your coach's face, because make no mistake about it, he was not called the Michael Jordan of Delaware in an endearing fashion. That was definitely used as a slight. And so now you can go back and be like, all right, MJ Delaware bet. I'll see you next year when you finally have to start me.
Yes, I believe there will be some back and forth along that one. And look, hey, own it now. You said it before as sort of a joke, but I'm wearing the crown now, baby. So you better make sure that continues and you say it in the right way. And that does lead us to the next conversation, which is just how good is this Villanova program right now. This is, again, 2 times in 3 years they've won the national championship. It's their 3rd championship since 1985, and according to our Jay Bilas, who, is a noted historian on this show and likes to weigh in with all kinds of facts about things when we have him on, and we'll have him on a little bit later, he says, guys, understand what Villanova is right now.
They are among the elites. There's no question. Since the tournament expanded in 85, there's only a handful of programs that have won 3 or more. Villanova's among them. Mm-hmm. And so for the millennials, for people who were born after 1984, it's Villanova right with the best of the best. And they've proven that. And I think they've proven that Villanova's here to stay. That they're not going anywhere.
I mean, listen, the Big East isn't what the Big East was. We do completely understand that. But what this guy has done in the last 4 years of winning at least 30 games, he hasn't, lost back-to-back games in 4 years?
5.
5 years? I mean, that's ridiculous.
Say that again.
He has not lost back-to-back games in 5 seasons. 4 seasons, at least, I believe it's 4, at least 30 wins.
That's Belichickian.
So it's crazy. So we sit there and talk about this blue blood. Blue blood, green blood, who gives a bleep, from Adam Sandler.
Just give me blood. I want blood.
You know what they have? They have 2 championships in the last 3 years. They're winning like crazy right now. They are one of the elite programs right now. Whatever blood you want with it, you know what? They're pretty happy being Villanova and where they sit right now.
And where they sit is set up well for the future at this point, because now you've started to marry a playing style that we talked about mimicked what we saw of Loyola Chicago, but now you've started to flood it. They've got, in addition to all these guys coming back, I believe a top 10 recruiting class coming in as well. So you mix the NBA caliber players already on your roster with more of that young talent that we know is the lifeblood of all this. And instead of, because in college basketball, we see one and done guys show up in a lot of different areas. And you think of Markelle Fultz and Ben Simmons of examples where it didn't translate to your team being great. You can play those lottery tickets with the one and done guys and have success, but you can also go the more consistent route that Jay Wright has gone, which is building something from the ground up like this that sustains and gets these guys in a rhythm once they're there.
Well, that's an interesting point, because 3 guys were there from the national championship game.
3 guys were there. 3 guys played. Brunson played 22 minutes in that one. He had 4 points in that one. Mikal Bridges played 15 minutes. He had 2 points. And it was Phil Booth. Played 25 minutes, had 20 points in that title game in 2016. Of all the starters, there's no seniors on that squad, so it's just a matter of, who is going to come back. DiVincenzo is only a sophomore, so it's who decide to declare, because I do, again, love it in college basketball where you can declare and you can go through a process, and if you don't like where you are, you can come back. So I do like that. So we'll see what happens with this group. And right now, as we said earlier out in Vegas, only Duke is a bigger favorite because they have the 1, 2, 3, and number 10 incoming freshmen coming into their team this year. I think they were 5-1. I think Villanova was 8-1 already going into next year.
Listen, we can get it. That's a whole separate discussion, and it's a valid one because the way that some of these kids are hamstrung through the process of deciding whether or not what to do at the next level for the NFL, as opposed to the flexibility that the NCAA and the NBA is giving these kids to decide whether or not it makes sense for them to go on to the next level. But to that point, that there were 3 guys that actually played in this era of one and done, that sounds so foreign now because you see these guys play and they're like, well, they're going on to the NBA, obviously. Jalen Brunson graduated in 3 years, by the way. Yep. So he's definitely, I think, going to be out of there. But, it's a testament to building something. And we had Jay Wright on earlier this tournament, and he talked about the culture they're trying to build at Villanova. They call it catitude, and it's the idea of passing it down from one generation to the next. And it is somewhat refreshing to see the idea that, hey, guys that played 2 years ago are still around to play in another title game, and clearly it's a formula that is working at Villanova.
Well, Brunson, Bridges, and Booth are the only players in Big East history to win multiple national titles, and I think, did you guys already say that?
No.
I don't know if you guys had already said that or not, and because I was asking Brett, the highest rated of these guys, as far as the NBA is concerned, is?
Bridges.
Is Bridges.
He's number 10.
He's rated number 10.
Nobody else projected first round.
Nobody else is projected first round. So, we'll see who they get back off a national title team. I mean, it's pretty darn impressive.
It is. And then it begs this question. What does that mean for Jay Wright going forward? Because the last time he won a championship, a lot of questions about whether or not he'd move on. And we'll talk about that. Plus, Villanova has some repercussions for our own staff we will get into.
Golic.
I tell you what, a great sports night last night, no doubt about it.
And Wingo.
What a day, what a show, what a time.
1, 2, 3, 4.
Sport Clips presents Haircut Highlight Reels featuring Rick.
Hey, everyone.
Let's roll the highlights. There goes Rick, stepping up to a championship haircut experience. Oh, he checked in online, so he's posting up at the front of the line. Did you see that? Rick threw down for the legendary MVP experience. Hairstyle, beard trimmed. What a dominating performance.
I really didn't do much.
Be a champion like Rick. Get in line online at sportclips.com/check-in and get your hair in the game.
Hey everyone, Mike Golic here. Support for the Golic Wingo podcast comes from our friends at Rocket Mortgage by Quicken Loans. Chances are you're confident when it comes to your work, your hobbies, your life. Rocket Mortgage gives you that same level of confidence when it comes to buying a home or refinancing your existing home loan. With Rocket Mortgage, you can apply simply and understand fully so you can mortgage confidently. To get started, go to rocketmortgage.com/Mikes. Equal housing lender, licensed in all 50 states, NMLS consumeraccess.org number 3030.
Alabama head coach Avery Johnson, who joins us on the Shell Pennzoil Performance line, taking synthetic motor oil performance to a whole new level. Make the switch to Pennzoil Synthetics today. Avery, thanks for getting up early and being with us this morning. We know that you know how good Villanova is because you lost to them in the NCAA tournament. When you played them, did you think at that time, I might have lost to the best team in college basketball right now?
Absolutely. Villanova is a team that's so balanced offensively, so efficient. When we broke down the video and started scouting them, we had to continue to run it back over and over again because, what we saw with our eyes was just amazing in terms of their ball movement, basketball IQ, spacing on the floor. Obviously, Jay Wright's done a great job with them in terms of coaching them, and their players are very coachable. But the way they move the ball, space the floor, obviously they're an unbelievable three-point shooting team, and all 5 guys on their starting lineup can shoot threes. But it was pretty impressive when we started scouting them how good they were not only offensively but also defensively.
Well, you look at that game, you were down just 5 at halftime, and then it got away from you guys in the second half. So is that part of the team aspect of the way they just kind of take over in the second half of that game?
Yeah, we were feeling pretty good about ourselves at halftime. You know, we were only down 5. Obviously, DiVincenzo carried them against us in the first half. You know, we made 4 or 5 threes, but we were feeling pretty good. But then, you know, the first, 4 minutes of the second half, then the next first 8 minutes of the second half, they just, went on a major run on us, and we just couldn't recover. And, with us being the 4th youngest team in college basketball, they just had more experience, at that stage of the tournament than we did, and we never recovered. But give them credit. We had an unbelievable year, especially with the way we finished the season. But give them credit. They're a terrific team, and they just play the right way.
You mentioned DiVincenzo and what he did in the championship game against you. He actually came off the bench and ended up playing more minutes than anybody on Villanova. He scored 18 points, including 5 of 11 from three-point land.
Why you got to rub it in, Avery?
Listen,
Avery, he's rubbing salt in the wound, man.
I'm just building up this young kid.
You know what? And it's great because he really is a kid that, sacrificed his game. Obviously, he could start, guys, but he's coming off the bench. But he's a starter. But that's what's best for their team, and that's just a microcosm of how unselfish they are. That you have a guys like DiVincenzo that can easily start, but he's coming off the bench because that's best for the rhythm and rotation of their team, and it's paid dividends for him.
Avery Johnson, the Alabama head coach, with us on Golic and Wingo this morning. Avery, as you now see what Villanova and J-Wright has been able to do and the way they've been able to do it, I mean, we're talking about 2 titles in 3 years, and there were 3 players that actually played minutes 2 years ago and were still on Villanova's squad 2 years later. I know that sounds foreign to a lot of people who played and enjoyed college basketball before the one-and-done scenario, but does it speak to the idea of maybe building a program around players who can be with you for more than 1 or 2 and potentially 3 years to develop that winning culture?
Well, first of all, I know everybody's piling on about the one-and-done kids. There's nothing wrong with having 1 or 2 of those kids on your roster, but at the same time, it's great when you get a chance to work with your student athletes for more than 1 year, if it's 2 or 3 years, or sometimes cases 4 years. And, that's what I'm really excited about, with us, as I alluded to earlier, being the 4th youngest team in the country. And we had 5 freshmen and a redshirt sophomore that played minutes for us. And now we're going to be a little bit older, and those kids will be coming back, and we'll have a chance to work with them again and get them, in a better strength and conditioning program. They'll be a lot more mature than what they were this year. But, kids that are, have NBA talent and that can go early to the NBA, great. It'll be very hypocritical for me, having played 16 years in the NBA and coached 7+ years there, to talk about try to hold kids back. But I'm also excited about our team, that we're going to have kids, that are returning, that have played, in an NCAA tournament game and have some real experience. And now we can become a little bit older and mature and wiser, and hopefully that'll pay off for us. But the kids that have one-and-done talent, there's nothing wrong with recruiting some of those kids. But I think having a blended team of not only maybe one of those kids, but having older players and mature players that can provide leadership for younger players is the way to go.
Alabama head coach Avery Johnson joining us on the Shell Pennzoil Performance Line. They played Villanova in the second round of the tournament this year. And now you talk about developing players and in that college lifting program and seeing the change from year to year. What are your thoughts from now coaching in college, but obviously playing for many years in the NBA? This kid, Darius Baisley, who committed to Syracuse and then decommitted, and he's going to go to the G League. And do you think it's going to start a trend? Let me start there. Do you think, guys, we've seen some guys go to Europe, but now this guy's going to go to the G League. Do you think that will start a trend?
I don't necessarily think it's going to start a trend because what we could provide on the collegiate level compared to maybe a G League experience is still a terrific experience. There are a lot of long bus rides and maybe in the G League and, you're riding on commercial aircrafts, but you go to a Power 5 school, especially like Alabama, we're flying around like NBA teams, and we got a, unbelievable experience that we can provide here, even if it is for a year. And then you obviously, whether it's 1 year or 2 years, you get closer to getting your college education and getting a college degree. So I don't know if that's the way to go, if it's going to start an onslaught of kids or avalanche of kids going to the G League. I do know one thing, that this college experience, even if it is for 1 year or 2 years or 3 years, is an unbelievable experience. And you get a chance to get, great training, great coaching, and, it's one that's invaluable. So I think maybe that could be an outlier situation, Mike, but I don't know if it's going to start a major trend.
Correct me if I'm wrong. It sounds like you're sitting in a recruit's living room right now, and in all honesty,
you're always coaching.
You're always coaching, because that's going to the other recruits see that, they're going to say, "Coach, why shouldn't I go to the G League?" It sounds like you just gave the speech on why maybe they shouldn't.
Yeah, and the main thing is we've had even kids out of high school that have tried to go overseas for a year. And, it's worked out for some and hasn't worked out for others. And, you got to always remember what's the fallback in terms of, if it doesn't work out, on a professional level as an NBA player. I was one of the few to play a long time. But at the same time, I thought I had a great backup plan. And obviously I graduated from college, and I know it's a different era now, but I just think every kid has to look at his own individual situation and try to find out what's best for he and his family. And, if it's going to the G League or playing overseas or coming to college, I would encourage kids to, go to college, and unless you're a guy like a Kobe Bryant or Kevin Garnett, and if the rules change and you have that type of talent, well, that's LeBron James. That's a different story. If the rules change where kids can go straight from high school to the NBA.
Well, LeBron James is a different story on a lot of different levels. There's no question about that.
I'd say.
Avery, we appreciate you being with us this morning. Best of luck and continued success at Alabama. Okay?
Thanks, Avery.
And thanks a lot. Roll Tide.
Golic and Wingo.
It was all sort of one big giant Jell-O mold. It's very interesting where that went.
You know who's always trending?
Always trending.
Because he's a historian.
Yes, he is.
He's a noted soothsayer.
Mm-hmm.
He says sooths. Our esteemed lawyer, Esquire, and college basketball analyst, Jay Bilas, now joins us on the Shell Pennzoil Performance Line from San Antonio. I have to say, Jay, I saw you in that one of those get-ups. I can't remember which show it was on, where you had on like the turquoise and black cowboy shirt and the cowboy hat. How much money did they pay you to actually wear that outfit?
Oh, they pay me to wear everything I wear. I can't even distinguish how much each item is, but that was low level.
Because I have to say, when I think Jay Bilas, I think black and turquoise Western shirt and cowboy hat. That's the first image I go to.
Forget that, Jay. That shot you took, the basketball shot, was incredible. Throwing across the I'm losing.
The Riverwalk.
Thank you very much.
Dirty Creek. As Charles Barkley calls it, the Dirty Creek.
Yeah.
Because there ain't no rivers in Texas. That's nothing but a dirty creek.
Yeah, Charles really working on the tourism there in San Antonio.
I take umbrage with that, as my father's from San Antonio, so we're going to call that the Riverwalk.
But what a shot! What a shot that was! I mean, you had to be just absolutely stunned. How far was it technically? What was the distance?
It was 110 feet. But there was I was elevated. So, when I first saw it, when I saw sort of the script of this thing, I thought it was going to be a half-court shot, honestly. So I thought, okay, half-court shot, that's no big deal. I could do that. Jay Will does it all the time. How hard could it be? So when I got there, I looked at Reese Davis and I said, dude, this may not happen. I mean, you got to be kidding me. And after, when it went in, I was very excited but more relieved, honestly.
Well, I'm glad we got that big shot out of the way, so we didn't have to talk about the other stuff which went on Monday night as Jay Bilas is with us. So now that we have Villanova cruising in many ways to a third national championship since 1985, and we're talking about them with the same likes as Duke, North Carolina, these other Kentucky, these other programs that have won multiple championships in that time frame. Where are they now in the pantheon of like programs when we look at the best of the best in college basketball?
They're right up on the top shelf, Trey. And, it's funny. It seems like we've been talking, and I don't mean you guys, but just sort of there's been a lot of talk that, hey, does Villanova belong with the Blue Bloods, as if they came out of some tiny little conference. I mean, Villanova has been a Big East team forever. And I realize the old Big East broke up, and it's a new Big East, with the Catholic Seven and all that stuff. But, Villanova has been playing with the big boys forever. And they've done extraordinarily well. Now, could you say before this year, because we're in a counting culture, and you have to count championships in order to put things together, could you say before this year, would you put them in the same breath with North Carolina and Duke and UCLA, all that stuff? Maybe they'd be a little further down the list than that. But in the expansion era, since we went to 64 teams, they're one of only 5 programs to win 3 or more, and that puts him at the top level. It puts Jay Wright at the very top level, and he's now Jay Wright's the torchbearer for college basketball going forward, because Coach K and Roy Williams, the other guys that are active that have multiple championships, they're staring down the end of their careers at some point in the relatively near future. And Jay Wright he's only 55, 56 years old. He's got a long time left in this game.
Yeah, without a doubt. And I know that the thought is, where does he go? And he talked about how he loves Villanova, been there forever. And a lot of people see if there's a move, maybe it's to the NBA. Who knows? That's for another time. As far as the game last night, this was my thought, Jay, is I thought Villanova would win, and there was the hope that Michigan, could they pull it off? Could they keep it close? But I think in everybody's mind, what we saw last night was kind of the expectation. I'd like to know if that was your expectation, and where in that game you said, yeah, Michigan just not coming back from this.
My expectation was that Villanova would win, but I thought it would be a close game. And Jay Williams said from the beginning he thought it was double digits and they'd walk away with it. He was right. But as we got toward halftime, when DiVincenzo came in, and Dante DiVincenzo is not a secret. He's the 3rd leading scorer for Villanova this year. He averaged about 13 a game. He's their 2nd leading assist guy on the season. I think he played the 3rd or 4th most minutes as the 6th man. So he wasn't a surprise. But when he came in and started knocking perimeter shots down, he's a very good shooter. He made 83s going into that game and went 5 for 7 in it. But you just didn't expect that. When he picked up the slack, because I thought Villanova struggled a little bit early, I think they were one of their first 9 from 3. And he came in and started burying shots and making great defensive plays. I mean, that block he had.
Oh, my gosh.
Where he went up with 2 hands. I mean, he's such a great athlete and so explosive. But that was like, I made the comparison last night. We were sitting out, it was like Timothy Mozgov. And not size-wise, because that guy's huge, but a big guy going up with 2 hands to block a shot and just going straight up. He did that as a little guard. And you knew then that you didn't think Michigan was going to come back, and because Michigan's not a great offensive team, and Villanova is. And offense, we say defense wins championships. Defense gives you the opportunity to win championships. But if you can't score, you're not going to win, and they can really score. That was really impressive.
Well, that was their modus operandi through the entire tournament, the entire year. They were the scoring leader for most of this season. Jay Bilas with us, our noted basketball historian. By the way, that block by DiVincenzo, he blocked with both hands. That was the best part. He blocked with the right hand and then got it back with the left hand. And I know this comparison isn't apples to apples, Jay, but I think you'll appreciate it because DiVincenzo did come off the bench. He was only averaging about 13 points a game, and he pours in 31. As I was watching this unfold in the national championship game, my mind went back to 1985 when Harold Jensen, who was not the player that Dante DiVincenzo was at Villanova, I get that, but he was only averaging about 4 points off the game, came off the floor against Georgetown, was 5 for 5 from the floor, and knocked down big shot after big shot in helping Villanova to their first title. I couldn't help but see some of the similaries there.
Yeah, I guess so.
By the way, that's Jay's way of saying no way in hell, but I appreciate you pretending.
No, I hadn't thought about that. That's a good call. I thought more to Luke Hancock, who came off the bench against Michigan in 2013. And before DiVincenzo's performance, Luke Hancock had scored the most points off the bench. He was the most outstanding player. He scored 22 off the bench. And, nobody's ever put 31 off the bench in a Final Four. I mean, that's an extraordinary performance that Dante DiVincenzo had. And I thought it's an extraordinary team in a lot of ways because they really don't seem to care which one of them does it in any given game. And they don't care who, as long as it's one of us. And they've done it all year long. And, they lost a couple games here and there. I can't remember what their record was, 35, 36, 4, whatever it was. But the last month, I don't think in the month of March they won a game by less than double digits.
They didn't.
Once we hit March, they were beating everybody, but still went to work with the same attitude and mentality that they had when the season started. It's really an impressive group.
Well, that's the comparison there, Jay. Is Jay Bilas is with us. The only other NCAA champions to do that, win every game from March on in double digits. The 1956 Dons of San Francisco with Bill Russell, and then Kareem's 1967 UCLA. I mean, that's the kind of rarefied air we're seeing from this Villanova team.
Yeah, they set themselves apart in this tournament, and in a season where I think we were talking about there may not be a great team. And we were probably doing that to perhaps justify the fact that we had so many unranked teams beat ranked teams, and things appeared unstable throughout the course of the year. Who can figure out who's the best team? Well, Villanova figured it out for us, and I think we would be remiss if we didn't refer to Villanova as a great team. They proved that they're a great team.
So, Jay, as we move forward with this thing, and you'll work the draft, I mean, this is a team with a number of juniors. Looks like Mikal Bridges, I believe, ranked number 10. I'm sure he's going to go. And nobody else ranked in the first round of this group. Do you foresee anybody else outside of Bridges going to the draft? And if not, what kind of team they coming back with?
I think you'll see Jalen Brunson look at it really seriously because he's a junior, he's graduated. I think there's a very good chance that he's going to go, but who knows? We don't know that. I think Mikal Bridges is going to go, and those guys both juniors. That it seems like the right time for them after having won 2 championships. So they'll probably wind up going. Who knows? Jay Wright's recruited very well. Now whether they're championship caliber next year, to me, isn't the issue. They'll be up at the top of their league, and that's really the test. Like, are you giving yourself the opportunity to knock on the door? And whether that happened, Florida won 2 under Billy Donovan. They kept knocking at the door. They went to the Final Four in 2014. They've been to Elite Eights, all that stuff. And I think you'll see that happen. And everybody says, hey, you can't have one and dones, can't do this, no McDonald's All-Americans, all that. Villanova's got pros on that team. They've got a number of pros. Dante DiVincenzo, whether it's this year or whenever, he's going to play in the NBA. Omari Spellman's going to play in the NBA. They've got pros. And maybe not McDonald's All-Americans, but they got pros. And I think you'll see those two guys take a hard look at it. But Bridges, I think, will be gone.
Jay Bilas with us this morning talking about what we saw from Villanova. And we've sort of had this running joke with you, Jay, the entire tournament long, how different it was and how, your counter was. We've sort of seen this before. So when you look at this tournament in total, what do you think we'll remember it for the most? Will it be Loyola and Sister Jean? Will it be Villanova's dominance? Or will it be the historic one losing to a 16 or, quite frankly, a 64 or 68 in UMBC?
I think we'll always remember it first for Villanova. I think the champion is the one that the accomplishment resonates and remains the longest. So that'll be number one. I think we will remember Loyola. The Sister Jean stuff, I think, will actually fade in time, and we'll remember the fact that they were at 11 that got there.
Right.
And one of the 4 that's ever done that to this point. And well, obviously, I think we will remember UMBC. I don't know that people will necessarily remember, who was the coach or who were the players, but we'll always remember the first time that a 16 lost to a 1, because it may be a long time before it happens again. The odd thing about that, as you guys probably know, is the margin of victory in those games is growing. So as we try to say parity to explain upsets, which is if we have parity now, we've always had it. We can't explain how is the margin growing. The 1 versus 16 games were closer years ago than they are now. We had overtime games, we had 1-point games. So we don't see those anymore. So it's an extraordinary accomplishment by UMBC that we'll remember for a long, long time. And now we'll always say, hey, you can't just pencil in the 1 seed because, hey, lightning did strike. Who knows? That kind of thing.
Jay, as far as college basketball as a whole, and maybe football will jump into this as well. We saw that FBI probe before the tournament started really grab the headlines, and it's kind of not been in the headlines. Does it come back to the headlines? Where does that go as we head into the college basketball offseason?
It'll head back into the headlines when something happens in the case, clearly. But, Mike, it's a great question because it's actually surprised me. We had this sort of seismic event that happened in September with the FBI stuff coming out, the arrests that were made, and then the indictments that came down. And the truth is nobody cares. All the fans want their games. And if certain programs got caught up in something, assistants, the fans don't care. They just don't. Fans of a rival may point at them and say something snarky, but nobody cares. And as we got toward the end of the season, the NCAA, and by NCAA, when I say NCAA, I don't just mean Mark Emmert and his office in Indianapolis. I mean all the member institutions. They always say the NCAA is the member institution, so I mean all of them. The NCAA, man, they didn't let anything mess with this tournament. Yeah. So when there was news that came out, all those guys got cleared in 24 hours. Nothing was going to mess with this tournament. Nobody cares. And so all we're going to see is with the Rice Commission and going forward, we'll have news from that, but it's not going to stop this money train from going down the tracks. Like, no games are going to get canceled. Nothing's going to happen in that regard. This business is going to keep going. But they will use it. The NCAA will use it to forward an agenda. And I think you may hear it under their breath, but they're going to say, let's not let this crisis go to waste, and let's do what we want to do. And I think they're going to double down on the policies they already have.
Yeah, we'll see what happens going forward. We've been sort of distracted with the shiny object of the tournament going forward. All right, Jay. Now that the tournament is done, it's one of the great weeks in sports. It seamlessly translates into the Masters. I know you're a big golf guy. We've been asking all our guests this week, who do you like this week? Roy Williams was leaning Jordan Spieth, then went Tiger Woods. Jim Boeheim noted Bubba Watson. Who do you like?
Well, I would love to see Tiger Woods do really well and be in contention, and I think there's a very good chance he can be. You know how well he does there. Even when he made his comeback years ago after the car crash and all that stuff, I think he finished in the top 10, maybe even top 5. So I hope he does well. But I like Justin Thomas in this one, the Alabama Crimson Tide grad. I like Justin. I think he's going to do really well. I think he'll get a green jacket out of this.
Look, he's got a couple of wins already this year. Came close to a third in that World Golf Championship where he lost in the playoff to Phil. Jay always bringing the historical context. There's no question about that. Jay, we appreciate it, man. Thank you.
Always a pleasure, guys. Thank you.
Golic and Wingo.
Let's not expect too much. There's only one person out there that's expecting way too much out of this guy too early. We know who that is. It's his father.
Love scoring amazing hotel deals? Then you've got to get the Hotel Tonight app. Forget scrolling through never-ending lists of hotels. Hotel Tonight shows you a select list of incredible deals at hotels you actually want to stay at. And even though the name's Hotel Tonight, you can book up to 100 days in advance in top destinations and up to a week in advance everywhere else. Want to get those deals? Yeah, you do. Download the Hotel Tonight app now.
Well, the push for the playoffs has begun in the NBA, but the quest for the championship is over in college basketball as Villanova sealed the deal last night in San Antonio, taking down Michigan by 17 points. And we are delighted to be joined this morning on Golic and Wingo by the Player of the Year. I think he got 3 of those awards over the weekend and got the one he wanted the most, the national championship. Jalen Brunson, Villanova guard, joins us now on Golic and Wingo. Jalen, good morning. First of all, congratulations. And second of all, I always like to ask this question. How much sleep did you actually get last night?
Well, good morning to you guys, too. I think in total, it's been broken up, but probably about maybe an hour, 20 minutes maybe.
Well, you sound fresh as a daisy, though. So way to go, man.
That's exactly what we wanted to hear and exactly how it should be, no doubt about it. So, Jalen, for those of us that will never had the experience and then to even up the ante by you doing it twice, How do you compare both of your championships, one you won 2 years ago to last night?
I just think it's very hard to compare, but it's crazy how things come full circle. Being a younger guy, my freshman year, trying to fit in, trying to make sure I'm doing what the team needs, and not really worrying about myself. And then now being a leader on this year's team, and still focusing on the same thing, being locked in on what my team needs to be done, and really just not focusing on anything individually. And it's crazy what can come out individually for you. So just trying not to focus on that. It's crazy. So it's really hard to compare.
Jalen Brunson with us, a Villanova guard, averaged a team-high 18.9 points per game this season, made 12 three-pointers in the NCAA tournament this year. And, Jalen, when the game was early and your offense was a little off, you were down at one point 21-14, then you made a couple of buckets to cut it to 3. I put this out there on Twitter. I said, Villanova is not playing well, and they're only down 3. I don't think this is going to end well for Michigan because it wasn't the same start you guys had against Kansas when you were making all those threes blindfolded. So when you saw that the offense wasn't quite going the way you wanted it to, and you were only down 3, did that give you guys some confidence that, hey, we're going to be just fine?
Oh yeah, we just try to make sure we're as positive as possible. We try to focus on our defense and rebounding the basketball as much as we can. That's what this program's prided ourselves on for so many years. And so even though we're not making shots, we're just still trying to find ways to make sure that we're focused on defending and rebounding, knowing that eventually they're going to go down.
So then in a game, different people can have the hot hand, and against Kansas, all of you had the hot hand. It was incredible. But watching your teammate Dante last night and just what he did in scoring 31, take us on the court there in when someone is just in the zone and basically hitting everything he's throwing up.
Well, first of all, it's not a surprise that Dante was able to do that. He has that ability, and just for that to come out during a national championship game, it's definitely pretty cool to see one of your best friends do that. But when we see somebody like that, we just try to play through him, and we know that we all play together. We all really don't care who's getting the credit. Just really trying to make sure that we're all in this together and just playing off each other.
Well, that's certainly working as Jalen Brunson, Villanova guard, player of the year 3 times over, joins us now on Golic and Wingo. So here's the real question, though, when it comes to Dante DiVincenzo, because Jay Wright couldn't give us a straight answer. Did he start calling him the Michael Jordan of Delaware, or did somebody else start calling Dante the Michael Jordan of Delaware first?
To be honest, I don't know the answer to that question at all. I believe I thought it was Coach Wright, but I could be mistaken. But so I don't know where that actually came from.
But you guys do call him that, right?
Just to get on his nerves.
Yeah, there it is.
I was going to say that's more to get on the nerves thing, no doubt about it. So, Jalen, in this game, as I thought a lot of people were watching it last night, can Michigan give Villanova a game? And then I think it ended up how a lot of people thought. How about for you on the court? Was there a point in that second half where you felt, you know what, Michigan just is not – they just are not going to be able to come back on us? Did you get that feeling at some point in the second half?
Honestly, no. We knew that Michigan was a really good team, and then they were going to be able to fight through the end of the game. And so, I mean, as the game kept going on, we just knew that we just needed to keep defending and rebounding, and not really worrying about is this going to be it? We just try to make sure we're playing hard for 40 minutes, and because you know how good they are. I mean, they deserve to be there. But we were just trying to sit together as much as possible and not really worrying about anything else.
Well, you certainly were able to do that. And the thing that was amazing, Jalen, as we were watching this game play out, is that it was always somebody else with Villanova. You hit shots early, and then we saw Dante come in, and then Gillespie came in and did something. Then Bridges hit some big shots. It just felt like whenever Michigan had a chance to maybe get it to within a manageable distance in the second half, somebody else stepped up for Villanova. What does that say about your team?
It just shows you how together we are, and how we don't really care who's getting the credit for anything. I mean, this is a special group of guys who really did the impossible, and I'm just so thankful I'm a part of this team. And when you have a group of guys who are so talented on both ends of the floor who don't really care who's getting the credit, a lot of great things can happen, and we're just so thankful we have each other.
Talking to Jalen Brunson, Villanova guard, 2 national titles, AP Player of the Year, a couple of Player of the Year awards, a Wooden Award coming up. We'll see what goes on there. So what's next for you? I mean, what's next for you, whether it's the NBA, whether it's coming back? What's your process going to be?
Well, first, I can't wait to get back to Villanova to be with my community. And I know they've done a great job of supporting us, so I'm so thankful to be a part of it. And once I get back there, I'm just going to enjoy it with my teammates because, we deserve it. So, that's the only thing on my mind right now. And once we get to that bridge, we'll cross it.
Are you a cheesesteak guy? Going to be delving into those a little bit?
I don't know. I'm still going to try and keep eating healthy as much as possible without, while I'm taking a little rest. But if I do, I'll go to Ishkabil's down South Street.
There you go. You just won the national championship,
You're allowed
man.
a cheesesteak.
Take a break on the diet for a day, man. Enjoy.
It's a championship cheesesteak Wednesday when you get back there. That's for sure. Hey, listen. One of the most amazing things, Jalen, that sort of came out of this tournament is not only what Dante was able to do off the bench, but you guys won every single game in March on by double digits. The only other teams to accomplish that feat and win a national championship, the San Francisco Dons of 1956, who are led by Hall of Famer Bill Russell, and the 1967 UCLA Bruins, led by Hall of Famer Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. When you hear that, and your team is in that category with those two teams, that means what exactly?
It's special. It's really special, and just to see this group of guys really just lock in and really be committed to each other and not really worrying about anything else. It's crazy what things can happen when you're not really focused on anything else. Besides your teammates. So.
It's been great. It was a lot of fun. Jalen, go get some sleep and get a cheesesteak. Congratulations on winning a second title in 3 years.
Thanks, Jalen.
Thank you so much.
This has been the Best of Golic and Wingo podcast. You can listen or subscribe on the ESPN app, Apple Podcasts, or just ask your smart speaker to play Golic and Wingo. Plus, you can check the guys out live weekday mornings from 6 to 10 Eastern on ESPN Radio and on ESPN News.
It's March, and that means one thing. Basketball, basketball, basketball. Did you know that college players who wear a number 1 jersey dunk the most? Or that juniors block the most shots per minute? Or that teams with cat mascots have caused the most upsets? The NCAA is using Google Cloud to turn more than 60 years of data into insights and answers. Now, you and your business can do the same. Know what your data knows. See how at g.co/March Madness. Google Cloud, the official cloud of the NCAA.